There is a growing enemy in the world today. This enemy attacks with no warning, debilitates millions, and worst of all, we have no weapons against it. What is it? Dengue fever. Also known as breakbone fever for the violent contortions, aches, and pains that many patients experience under the effects of the disease, dengue fever is the most rapidly spreading mosquito-carried viral infection in the world today, according to Service's 2012 text entitled Medical Entomology. Over 40% of the world is at risk of infection, and that number is growing daily. The World Health Organization, in recognition of this increasing threat of the disease to the world's population, has begun gathering funds and organizing groups to spread awareness and education about dengue and begin implementing outbreak prevention campaigns. However, the number of participants in this effort remains small, and many areas of the world, especially areas of Africa and South America, rural areas, remain relatively untouched by prevention efforts. The aim of my project is to help the WHO, the World Health Organization's educational efforts with regards to our southern neighbors in Mexico and Brazil, two of the countries most affected by dengue fever. First, I'll help you to understand the biology of dengue and why it's such a dangerous and potentially lethal disease. Then I'll explain the World Health Organization's initiative regarding dengue and why I've decided to seek them out as grantors. Finally, I will explain my grant project in more detail, outlining the main goal of the project and the two means by which I aim to achieve this goal. Dengue is a viral infection spread primarily by mosquitoes of the species Aedes aegypti. Now, what's unique about dengue is that it's actually spread by 4 different viruses: Den 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, once caught, a person infected with any one of these 4 viruses is immune to that particular virus from then on. So say that you get Den 1. You are immune to Den 1 from that point on, but you're not immune to Den 2. So a person can be affected by any of the other 3 viruses that they've not been infected with. With each subsequent infection of dengue, the infection and its symptoms get more severe because the antibodies are basically reacting with one another inside your body. Generally, in someone who's never had dengue, the symptoms are non-lethal but very painful. Now, there's what's known as the dengue triad of symptoms: a fever, rash, and body and head pain. The basic form of dengue is known as classic dengue and only has a mortality rate of 1%. However, in subsequent infections, classic dengue can turn into dengue hemorrhagic fever, or DHF. DHF has all the symptoms of classic dengue, but with internal bleeding thrown into the mix. Victims have petechia, discoloration of the skin, they get nosebleeds, they have pneumonia, inflammation of the heart, and in the most severe cases, they can go into shock and die. Now, there is a 30% chance that DHF will kill a patient. But even with a mild case of dengue, the patient experiences the worst disease for over a week and then is in recovery for over a month. So even if they don't die, they're going to experience a lot of economic stress because of this disease. There's currently no vaccine because the vaccine has to prevent all 4 of those different types of viruses from getting into your body and doing what they do. And because those antibodies react with one another, basically the challenge is to try and make a vaccine that's not going to attack itself. So treatment options are very limited. There's no vaccine. So the majority of efforts with regards to dengue are aimed at prevention. Now, dengue is endemic to over 100 countries in Southeast Asia, the Pacific, Sub-Saharan Africa, South and Central America, and then the Caribbean. And according to the World Health Organization's 2013 report on dengue and dengue hemorrhagic fever, dengue is spreading to Florida and Texas. Now, the growing area over which dengue is spreading has brought to the attention of the World Health Organization, which has developed its 2012-2020 Global Strategy for Dengue Prevention and Control, which is basically the report saying what they're going to do about it. And I'm going to summarize this report in order to help you understand the WHO initiative. The WHO's primary goal regarding dengue is to decrease mortality by 50% by 2020. There are 5 technical elements or steps that are planned to achieve this goal, and I'm going to explain those to you very briefly. First, they plan to improve diagnosis and case management through basically the proper education of health professionals as well as the general population. So basically getting the information out there. Second, survey and report on dengue and mosquito species throughout the year to predict and prepare for outbreaks. So they're basically going to monitor mosquito populations and use mathematical models to see and guess basically what's going to happen next year so that they can better prevent mosquito populations from growing and prepare for the worst. And they do this by placing scientists in the area to look for indicators. Third, sustainable vector control through the education of the population and governments about mosquito and dengue. Basically how they can prevent outbreaks by reducing the number of mosquito breeding grounds, how they can avoid infection by sleeping in protective mosquito nets or wearing bug spray. So basically making people understand that mosquitoes are what cause dengue and getting the population to work to kind of reduce the number of mosquitoes in the population so it reduces the number of people it's spread to. Fourth is future vaccine implementation. Like I said, there is no vaccine right now, but they are currently working on it. There are a lot of viable options right now, but once a vaccine is actually developed and made public, essentially, this fourth step is meant to get that vaccine out to as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time so that people can basically not die from dengue. Fifth is basic operational and implementation research, and basically what that is monitoring all these other steps, researching the effectiveness of certain methods, and offering advice where it's needed. So it's basically just the kind of top step. It's the higher ups watching all those other steps and seeing what they're doing and saying what they can do to improve. So the MMI project is to aid the WHO in their first and third steps, improving diagnosis and sustainable vector control. A third but equally important goal is to raise community awareness in the United States about dengue fever and the threat that it poses not only to us but the rest of the world. So the plan is relatively simple. Develop packets in the native language of the target area detailing dengue fever in simple terms. So basically Spanish for Mexico, Portuguese for Brazil is basically what that means. Now, these packets would explain what individuals can do to prevent the spread of dengue and how to recognize dengue. These packets would have personal mosquito nets enclosed with them, and we would distribute them to clinics and community centers in the target area. The grant from the WHO and other grantors, philanthropists and whatnot, would basically be used primarily for the development of the packets and the printing of the packets. These packets would be very colorful, illustrated, very detailed, and written in the native language in a very basic way so that the layman can understand what's going on and what they need to do. So in order to do this, you need a trained medical entomologist, someone who is trained both in entomology and in medicine to a large extent, a translator who can translate from English to Portuguese and to Spanish, and then finally an illustrator or two who would basically develop the images. Possibly a graphic designer would be needed to make it as attractive as possible. And then a minimum number of mosquito nets would also be purchased with the remainder of the grant money, although the project will primarily rely on donation. Flyers will basically be distributed to local community centers asking for donation for mosquito nets in order to help families at risk of contracting dengue fever. And the way we do this would be to have a packet where they basically put however much money they want to donate, and that would go straight to a third-party distributor, which would purchase a mosquito net directly. So there wouldn't be, the money wouldn't be going to us and then going to the distributor, so they could feel a little more safe that this money is actually going to buying mosquito nets. So these flyers will serve the purpose of not only getting those mosquito nets into us so we can get them to the populations in need, but it would also increase public awareness of what's going on, why these mosquito nets are needed, what dengue fever is, so people can kind of understand what's going on. If successful, the project would continue aiding WHO efforts by sending trained medical entomologists to areas in need, basically getting those people in there, training medical professionals on how to deal with dengue, explain to people how they can help prevent dengue, and then also in the home front, we would have medical entomologists who would provide seminars, do speeches, basically explain the danger of dengue So basically, just increasing overall awareness to help support the WHO's efforts. So now that you understand dengue in a little more detail, and you know what the WHO is doing to aid in the struggle against it, I hope that you'll understand my grant, why it's needed, and help support it. Thanks.